AI is like the word on everyone's lips these days.
Yeah, it's everywhere you look.
But put them together, AI and podcast. OMG, AI.
Catchy, right?
Definitely attention grabbing.
Yeah, and it tells you something about how people see AI, you know?
Definitely a sense of buckle up.
A little bit of awe, a little bit of, oh my God, what's next?
Exactly. Makes you wonder if we're ready for a podcast like OMG AI.
Maybe, maybe not. All right, so you're here, and you're probably interested in running AI, specifically large language models locally, right there on your computer.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's something we're seeing more and more these days. This ability to really leverage these powerful AI models without, having to depend on some big cloud setup or a team of data scientists.
Exactly. It's like bringing the future to your desktop and really putting you in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, we're going to focus on LM Studio. Have you heard of LM Studio?
I have, yeah. It's a really neat application that basically makes it so much easier to experiment with and actually use these LLMs locally.
So that begs the question, Ray, what actually happens when you download one of these models in LM Studio? Are you like pulling down the entire original LLM? It's a big question because some of these AI models can be absolutely enormous.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are hundreds of gigabytes in size, and it's a good question. Are you downloading the whole thing? What's LM Studio's role? Where does all this data actually live?
And that's exactly what we want to unpack today. We're going to break it down for you so you can understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it all in plain language. No jargon, we promise.
Right. We want to make this accessible for everyone, even if you're not a tech expert, especially if you're a business professional.
Exactly. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we do need to get one really important thing out of the way up front, a disclaimer.
Yes, absolutely. A crucial one.
So if you're thinking about trying out LM Studio or anything like it on your work computer, the absolute first thing you need to do is talk to your IT department.
Totally. Don't download anything until you've checked with them and you fully understand your company's policies on AI usage. It's just super important for security reasons and, making sure everything's on the up and up.
Absolutely. Better to be safe than sorry, right? All right, with that out of the way, let's jump in. What is LM Studio?
So LM Studio is a desktop application. It's designed to let you run and experiment with these large language models.
Yeah.
LLMs directly on your computer. Doesn't matter if you're using a Mac or Windows PC or even Linux.
Nice. So it covers all the bases.
Yeah, it's meant to be really accessible, and it provides this really user-friendly environment for people who want to play around with these models, try different things without, needing to get into all the complexity of setting up cloud services or needing a bunch of technical expertise.
So for those of us who aren't software engineers, LM Studio makes this technology much more approachable.
That's the goal.
So walk us through it. What can you actually do with LM Studio? What are some of the key features that would be relevant to our listeners?
Sure. So one of the core things you can do is you can run these local LLMs right on your computer. And it gives you this chat interface that's very similar to other AI tools you might have used, things like ChatGPT or Google's Bard.
So it feels familiar. It's not like a completely alien environment.
Exactly. And then what's really neat is that you can actually search for and download different LLMs right within the application.
Wow, that's handy.
Yeah, it connects to Hugging Face, which is this massive repository of AI models, and it lets you kind of browse through different options and find something that, matches what you're interested in experimenting with.
So it's like having a direct connection to a huge library of these AI models. That's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And for people who maybe want to do a bit more than just, chat with an AI LM studio, can also act as a local server.
Now we're getting a little bit more technical. What does that mean exactly, and how would that be useful for our listeners?
Right. So essentially it means that it can talk the same language as OpenAI's API, which is kind of the standard way that a lot of developers interact with these models.
Oh,
and so if you have some technical skills, you could potentially connect other applications or scripts that you might be using directly to that local LLM running on your computer. It opens up a lot of possibilities for more advanced integrations.
So it's kind of like having an AI engine under the hood that you can then connect to different things.
That's a good analogy. And LM Studio also makes you, keep track of all the different models you've downloaded, which is nice because you can end up with a lot of files and it can get a bit messy.
Yeah, organization is key, especially when you're dealing with something as complex as AI.
Absolutely. So that's kind of a high-level overview of what LM Studio can do. It gives you a lot of flexibility, whether you're just getting started with AI or, you're more experienced and want to really dig into the technical details.
So it seems like they've really tried to strike a balance between ease of use and power.
Exactly.
Okay, so now let's talk about actually getting it set up. How easy is it to install LM Studio?
It's pretty straightforward. You basically go to their website, you go to the download section, and there are installers for Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. I actually watched a YouTube video by this guy, Alexander Haber. He's got a PhD in AI, and he walks through the entire installation process on Windows. And it looks like a typical software installation, next finish.
So pretty standard stuff, nothing too intimidating.
Yeah, not at all. And the website has a really detailed page that outlines all the system requirements so you can double check that your computer's compatible.
Which brings us to the next question, right? What kind of computer do you actually need to run something like LM Studio? Do you need some super high-end gaming PC or something?
Well, it does take some processing power to run these models, but they've tried to make LM Studio as accommodating as possible. So it works on Apple Silicon Macs. Those are the ones with the M1 and M2 chips.
Okay.
And on the Windows side, it supports both the x64 and the ARM-based PCs. Although for the x64 systems, your processor does need to support this thing called AVX2.
AVX2, what is that?
It's just a set of instructions that the processor needs to be able to understand.
Got it.
And for Linux, it specifically supports Ubuntu 20.04 or newer on the x64 architecture.
Okay, so it sounds like most relatively recent computers should be compatible. What about memory RAM? I imagine these AI models need a lot of that.
Yeah, you're right. RAM is super important. For a smooth experience, especially with larger models, they recommend having at least 16 gigabytes of RAM.
Oh, wow, that's a fair bit.
It is, but you can still experiment with smaller models. If you only have, say, 8 gigs, it might just be a bit slower.
All right, so you've got LM Studio installed. You've got a compatible computer with enough RAM. You're ready to dive into the world of local AI. You go to that Discover tab in LM Studio, you find a model that sounds interesting, and you click Download.
Right.
What is actually happening at that point?
Hmm.
Are you downloading this massive, multi-hundred gigabyte AI brain onto your hard drive?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer is generally no. You're not downloading the entire original model.
Okay, explain that. Because I was picturing like this gigantic file just like sucking up all my hard drive space.
Yeah, it makes sense to think that, but there's some clever stuff happening behind the scenes. To understand it, we need to talk about model weights. Have you heard that term before?
Vaguely, but refresh my memory.
Sure. So think of model weights as like the knowledge, the instructions that are baked into the AI. They're essentially the data that tell the LLM how to understand and generate text.
So they're kind of like the brain of the AI.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And the more complex the AI, the more of these weights it has.
Okay. And so for these cutting edge models, these files must be gigantic.
They can be absolutely massive, like I said, hundreds of gigabytes, sometimes even more. But here's where the magic happens. A lot of the models that you can download through LM Studio are quantized. Have you ever heard of that?
Quantized. I feel like I've seen that word somewhere, but I don't actually know what it means.
Okay, so quantization is essentially a way to shrink down these massive models to make them more manageable for everyday computers.
So they're like compressing the files.
Yeah, exactly. It's like taking a really high-resolution image and saving it as a JPEG. It loses a little bit of detail, but it's still recognizable, and it takes up way less space.
So you're trading off a little bit of size for a bit of quality.
Right. And with these AI models, you're often trading off a tiny bit of accuracy or performance for a much smaller file size and faster loading times.
Gotcha. And I've seen these Q numbers when looking at different models like Q4, Q8. What do those mean?
Those are the quantization levels, and
Yeah.
generally, the lower the number after the Q, the more the model has been compressed.
So Q4 is more compressed than Q8.
Yeah, exactly. And those Q4 models will typically use less RAM, but they might not be quite as accurate as the Q8 versions of the same model.
Interesting trade-offs there.
Yeah, there are. Now, another important thing is the file format that you're downloading. A lot of these quantized models use a format called GGUF.
GGUF. What is that?
So it's a binary file format, and it's specifically designed for efficiently loading and saving those model weights that we talked about.
So it's like a super efficient way to package those AI brains.
Precisely. And it means that when you want to use a model in LM Studio, it loads really quickly.
Nice. So when I click download, I'm usually getting one of these GGUF files.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that you're not getting the entire original model. You're getting a smaller, more manageable version that your computer can actually handle.
Okay, that clears up a lot of mystery. So LM Studio is not performing some incredible shrinking act. It's using these already compressed models.
Right.
So what IS the role of LM Studio then? If these model files are already ready to go, why do we need LM Studio at all?
That's a good question. Think of it this way. You've got the fuel, the GGUF model files, and you've got some basic engine components like these things called runtimes that can process those files. But you need a control system. You need a dashboard to manage everything and make it user-friendly. And that's what LM Studio does.
So it's like the bridge between me, the user, and all the complex stuff happening in the background.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It provides that graphical interface so you can easily search for models, download them, organize them, and it handles a lot of the technical stuff in the background, like making sure you have the right runtimes
Yeah,
installed.
times. Those are new.
So runtimes are essentially software libraries that know how to take those GGUF files and actually execute them, turn them into the text or code or whatever the model is designed to do.
So it's like the interpreter.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes when you download a new model, LM Studio might need to download the right runtime for it, but it does that automatically. You don't usually have to worry about it.
Got it. So LM Studio handles the models and the underlying engines that power them. What else does it do?
Well, it gives you that familiar chat window where you can just type in your prompts and see the AI's responses.
Like a conversation.
Exactly. And it also has some really cool features like chat with documents. Have you heard of that?
I haven't. Tell me about it.
So it lets you upload documents, PDFs, text files, and the AI can then analyze them and answer questions about their content.
Wow, that's powerful. And all of this is happening locally on my computer.
Exactly. It all stays offline. If you're working with sensitive information, that's a big plus. And for more advanced users, it can also act as a local server, which allows for more complex integrations.
So it's really got a lot of versatility.
It does. But the core benefit is that it makes this technology accessible to people who aren't programmers.
Yeah.
You don't need a degree in computer science to use it.
That's great. So let's talk about data and security. Where does all this information actually live? When I download a model, when I chat with it, where is that data stored?
Yeah, that's a crucial question, especially if you're dealing with confidential information. So once you've downloaded a model, those GGUF files that we talked about, they get stored locally on your computer.
Okay, so it's not floating around in the cloud somewhere.
Nope, it's right there on your hard drive. And Alexander Haber's video actually shows you how to find the model's directory. On Windows, it's usually in your user's home directory in a folder called Ilm Studio.
So it's organized and easy to find.
Yeah, exactly. And when you use that chat with documents feature that we talked about, the documents you upload also stay local. They're never sent to any external servers.
That's a big relief. So let's dig into the security aspect a bit more.
Yeah.
If everything is stored locally, can I operate completely offline?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the big advantages of running LLMs locally with LM Studio. Once you've downloaded a model and any necessary runtimes, you can disconnect from the internet, and you can still chat with the model. You can still use the chat with documents feature all offline.
Wow, so it's truly self-contained.
It is. And that means that your data is much more secure. It's not being transmitted over the internet. It's not being stored on someone else's servers.
That's huge, especially for businesses that are dealing with sensitive information.
Exactly. So to summarize, internet connectivity is really only needed for a few things: for downloading new models, for downloading those initial runtimes, and for checking for updates to the LM Studio application itself. But once you've got everything you need, you can go offline and work with your local AI in a completely secure environment.
That's fantastic. So to recap, LM Studio makes it incredibly easy to run powerful AI models locally on your own computer. When you download a model, you're typically getting a compressed version that's optimized for everyday hardware. LM Studio acts as that user-friendly interface, and it manages all the technical stuff in the background. And most importantly, all the data, including the models and any documents you process, stay right there on your machine, offering a high level of security and privacy.
Exactly. And it opens up a lot of exciting possibilities for people who want to experiment with AI and potentially integrate it into their workflows.
And just one final reminder before we wrap up, if you're thinking about trying out LM Studio or anything like it on your work computer, talk to your IT department first.
Yes, always check with IT and make sure you understand your company's policies before downloading anything.
Absolutely. Now, as we leave you today, we want you to think about the potential benefits of having this local AI capability. Imagine being able to securely analyze documents offline, or even just experiment with different models without sending any sensitive data to the cloud. It's really a game changer, and it's something that's becoming increasingly accessible to individuals and businesses alike.
And who knows what the future holds? This technology is advancing so rapidly, and the possibilities seem almost limitless. So it's definitely an exciting time to be exploring the world of AI.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into LM Studio and local LLMs. We hope you've learned something new today. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.